Hey, Mark, I had an interesting conversation the other day that got me to thinking, and I came up with a topic for us to discuss today.
Really, Rick? What happened and what was the conversation?
Well, my wife's Amazon habit kicked in, and she ordered a bunch of garden planters that got delivered by our friendly Amazon driver.
Oh, your wife's big on gardening, right?
No, she is not, but she is impulsive, and she thought it would be fun to plant an herb garden on the back patio.
Rick, that sounds really nice. Maybe she wants to grow her own herbs, cook them, and eat them because they're healthier.
Yeah, that's not likely. But anyway, I asked her, why do you do the things you do? And she looked at me and said, it's just who I am as a person, and smiled and shrugged her shoulders.
Well, Rick, I bet she keeps life interesting for you. But what does that have to do with our podcast?
Well, it got me to thinking about why people do the things they do, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic for us to discuss today.
You know, Rick, that does sound interesting. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. This is for those who don't just want to retire, but want to live a fun, travel-filled, strong, and decades-long retirement. Your hosts are Rick Collins, the financial expert who'll help you build the wealth you need to retire with confidence, freedom, and zero stress. And Mark Dulaney, also known as the Health Millionaire, who will help you build the health, strength, and mobility to actually enjoy that wealth. Because let's be real, what's the point of financial security if you don't have the health to enjoy it? This podcast is for you if you are about 50 and up, have worked hard, saved smartly, sacrificed, invested wisely, and now want to lock in your future with the health and wealth you need for a great retirement. So listen up, because the best years of your life should be ahead of you, not behind you. In every episode, Mark and Rick break down the health, fitness, and financial strategies you need to create a thriving retirement, one that's strong, mobile, financially secure, and most of all, fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast time. I'm Mark Dulaney. His name is Rick Collins. And you heard, he's got an interesting conversation for us to discuss it. And you've heard, I speak English, and you heard, he has a very interesting topic for us to discuss today. Rick, I wish I were married, but some of the excitement that occurs when people are married is thrilling to hear stories about. So talk about what you opened us with what happened with your wife.
Yeah, my wife, bless her heart, I love my wife. She is truly a blessing. And she actually has a sweatshirt that says, I am a blessing and a delight. But she does some quirky things sometimes. And the other day, the Amazon driver came by and delivered 6 big boxes to our front door. And they're all addressed to her as usual. So I asked her, what's in the boxes? And matter of factly, she said, garden planters. And I looked at her. I'm like, well, why? And she's like, well, it'd be fun to have an herb garden in the back patio. And I looked at her and I said, why do you do these things? Why do you do the things you do? And we joke and laugh about this. And she looked at me and smiled and shrugged her shoulders and said, it's just who I am as a person. So that got me thinking, why do people do the things they do? What are their intrinsic motivations? Why do they make the decisions they do? How do they get themselves in situations that seemingly have no reasonable explanation? So I thought we'd discuss that today and see where it leads us.
I have to admit, there's been many times I wondered, why do I do the things that I do? And definitely I look at other people and it's interesting. I help my clients figure out why they do what they do. But when it comes to ourselves, sometimes I think we get lost as to why we actually do what we do. So lead us in a great conversation, Rick. You being the master of marriage and money, help us understand how to better understand our women the way you help us understand money.
Well, I have not been a good husband in past relationships because I wasn't a good person. I wasn't in a good mental place. And so I did selfish things. So in my journey, I am in recovery from some addictive behaviors, and I help other people. I teach a recovery class. And the big thing that I tell people is whatever you do, whatever is motivating you, whether it's fear or love or anxiety or anger, there are emotions behind the scenes that are kind of dictating and driving what you do, how you see the world, how you see yourself, and your behaviors are really sometimes coping mechanisms for those underlying emotions.
And so, as it relates to our topic, creating health and wealth for retirement, I think you're saying that people are more affected by the emotions and the moods and their reactions to things that happen now than they are about the long-term benefits that they want to get from their body and from their money.
I can't tell you how often more than it should, I will be on my way to the gym and there is a donut store 2 blocks from my gym that I will stop at the donut store. And in my mind, I say, I need fuel to go work out and have a good workout. So I'll have 3 donuts. That kind of defeats the purpose of going to the gym. But I see that donut store. I'm like, and I justify to myself, I'm going to go work out. It's okay if I have a couple of donuts because A, I need fuel, and B, I want it because it tastes good. But I short circuit my plans for being healthy by giving in to this hunger pang that's not really real. It's just a craving I have. Yeah, so yeah, I do crazy things.
Just to be clear, Rick, you're saying people should not eat a lot of donuts, whether they're exercising or not. I'm hoping that's what you're trying to make the point that you're making, right?
A donut here and there once in a blue moon is okay, but people make habits of this, donuts every day or the 1,000-calorie Starbucks drink every day because it's a habit, because they need that fix. And I know I'm getting down to the weeds, but sometimes those decisions are driven by, is it comfort food? I'm real big on comfort food. I'm a diabetic and I have a sweet tooth and I'll eat a donut, obviously, or cookies, and I'll just take more insulin. But it's an emotional response to whatever I'm feeling. I will eat my way through my feelings, which is not healthy, but
And so it sounds like what you're really describing is, and what you're really asking is, why do we do what we do?
yeah.
If we could figure that out, we could possibly make better decisions and come up with better coping mechanisms for what makes us want to do destructive or spending or eating things. And so the topic of this show that you brought up, Rick, which I think is excellent, and I'm going to ask you a question to begin with. Did you challenge or ask your wife why she really bought those things as opposed to just accepting it and going along with it? Rick, tell us. All men want to know.
I am still foolish enough to try to ascribe logic to the female in my life. And what I've just determined is I need to quit asking why and just nod my head and go, okay, honey, whatever makes you happy. Because apparently she was bored or she had an inkling that she wanted to do something. And it's good for her to have outlets and interests, but asking why sometimes leads me to shake my head and just go, why did I ask why? But sometimes it's better not to
Well,
ask.
because they make interesting podcast stories, Rick. That's why you ask why.
Yes,
They
they
make very
do.
interesting podcast content. But the essence of your question is, why do we do what we do? And I believe every person should ask themselves the question before they do it, not after that. How many times, Rick, have you done something and then when it was all said and done, say, oh, why did I do that? Well, what if we asked that question before we did it? Why am I going to do this? Why do I want to do this?
Yeah, I tell people when you're making a decision or you're feeling impulsive, just to stop, take a second, play that movie forward. And what I mean is think about how you're going to feel after you make a decision, after you make a choice, after you go buy the shiny plastic stuff or go to the all-you-can-eat buffet or go waste $1,000 on some new toy or make an unhealthy choice of, hey, I'm going to have another drink. I'll be okay to drive home. Why do you do those things? So stop, play that movie forward in your mind to the next hour, the next day, the next month. Is it going to turn out the way you think? or what are the risks that could happen if you make this choice? What are the downsides? Is it worth it? And
And I
sometimes
think
people stop and go, it's just not worth it.
yeah, and I think the other side of it is once you ask the question, what am I trying to accomplish? Is there a better way to accomplish this than doing this destructive thing would be the second question. So your first question is great. Why am I doing this? What am I trying to accomplish? But then to ask, is there a more productive way to accomplish it? So for example, in your case, instead of donuts, it might be, I've never heard anyone think they should actually eat heavily before they go exercise, but there's got to be something better that you could have chosen or something you could drink that would actually prime your body for. And
Yeah,
you
I
get what I'm
couched
saying.
it as I'm gonna go get a donut for carb loading so I can work out longer and harder. Then I work out for like 10 minutes and then I feel like quitting and I go home. So I've I've gone backwards from being healthy. Instead of working out to burn off the 1,000 calories, I burn off 300 and store an extra 700 in my gut. But anyway,
So for
we've
example,
talked in the past. We've talked about love and fear and acting out of love or fear or the five fingers of destruction. What is it? Five
failure.
fingers
Five fingers of
failure
failure. Yes.
and the importance of consistency. But sometimes our brains get in our way and we justify situations, we justify choices because I'm worth it or I don't feel like it or I'm not worthy. I deserve this or I don't deserve that. So there's lots of emotional subtext to why we do the things we do.
So I want to share a technique with you that I teach my clients when they find themselves not able to, and it's called stopping. And it would be like when you're driving to the gym thinking, I should stop at the donut shop. You should stop your car, sit there and just say, okay, I'm about to go buy donuts before working out. Stop and really think about that through. I wish that I could get so many people before they eat to sit down and stop and say, what's this going to do to my body when they're making excuses? So one of the things we learn is that sitting on a couch and grabbing the remote leads to a night of watching television. I know that sounds obvious, but what if before you grabbed the remote, you said, okay, what would be the most productive thing I could do right now? And then you might find out that you might exercise first. The person listening to me might find out that they'd be loving with their children and spend time with their children or their significant other. The idea of stopping before taking an action gets you to really stop, think consciously about what you're about to do and what the results would be from that. What are your thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, stop and think. That sounds easier than it's easier said than done. Stop and think. What's going on here? Why am I doing this? What do I want to accomplish? Why am I doing this? And what am I trying to avoid, or what am I trying to enjoy? That is it worth it?
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of it. And it is easier said than done, but it is pays off in major dividends. Saves you money for retirement, saves you calories for retirement, makes you do something that's way more productive. There's so many ways stopping before doing something like that has benefits for you, for me, for whoever's listening.
Yeah,
Um,
taking a bigger picture look instead of being down in the weeds. Go. We call it the 30,000 foot view of. Yeah, today it's easy to blow something off and not go to the gym or not save money today. I can always make it up later. But if you take a bigger picture, bigger view, all those little decisions along the way really add up to developing a rut or getting in a habit or getting in a hole that it's just harder to dig out of later, which makes it a lot harder to get what you want out of life because you've made some impulsive choices today.
so we were supposed to report our results of last week in terms of how we did. Are we proud of ourselves for the work we did last week? If you remember that. I'm not sure how much either of us are looking forward to making that public proclamation about whether we're proud of ourselves or not. But one of the interesting things that I would like to say about this whole topic we're talking about is stopping before, but also stopping after to evaluate what you did to come up with a better plan for next time. And you and I do a mastermind before we start this show. And I talked about my last week, I was very proud of myself on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'm literally ashamed of myself on Thursday and Friday. But rather than be ashamed of myself, I decided to learn from it. And one of the things I realized is there's a part of me that wants to avoid rejection. So I don't market as much as I should. But which in essence is I'm rejecting myself. So beforehand, stopping and thinking about what am I going to do now? Should I do this or not? But also stopping after you get results to see how you could do better. But to answer the question, I was proud of myself early in the week. I'm ashamed of myself late in the week. What about you, Rick, for last week? And
First of all, you said something very interesting. You're hesitant to
hang
do
on, hang on, hang
marketing
on, Rick,
because
hang on, Rick. Was that the first time I've ever said something interesting? You,
it happens occasionally. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. But you said you're hesitant for marketing because you didn't want to do marketing, so because you didn't want to get rejected. Well, people who don't like your message are not going to reply to you and say, "Hey, I don't like your message. I don't like you." So that's an irrational fear you have of rejection because you're never going to really be rejected. Well, then you might get the occasional "Don't text me or call me again," but 99% of our marketing is going to go out and never get responded to. So it's interesting that your fear of being rejected, as irrational as it is, it's still real to you. So we're not trying to downplay any kind of fears or problems, but in the big picture, it may be a bigger thing in your head than you think. So for me, I let's travel to
well,
me.
before you go on, hey, Rick, sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. Before you go on, you said something that I think is profound. I want to make sure everyone who hears it
Wow. I
understands it.
said something profound. You said interesting. I got profound. Okay, we're making progress.
So what you said was, if I don't do the marketing, not only won't I get rejected, but I'm really rejecting myself. And the way you said it and the way you is something I want people to understand. What you fear that you don't do, you actually get what you fear. Does that make sense? If I'm afraid of marketing, so I don't market, so I don't get rejected because I'm afraid I'm going to get rejected, in essence, I'm rejecting myself. I remember they used to talk about high school proms. Am I going to walk across am I as a guy, not the tallest, handsomest guy, going to walk across the room and ask that hottest woman in the room to dance with me? Or am I going to not do it because I'm afraid she's going to say no? If I don't do it, she in essence is saying no, or I'm saying no to myself. How much stuff do we lose out on, not because we get rejected or because we fail, but because of fear of rejection and failure, so we don't do it anyway?
Yeah, living in fear is never it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not healthy enough, I'm not whatever. So I'm not going to do the things that could pay off, so therefore I don't get the payoff ever. So it automatically becomes a no. If you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. If you don't take the shot, it's
And
always a
you,
miss.
in essence, you're creating your own failure when you do that. When you don't act out of fear, you're creating your own failure. We literally could end this podcast now. If people walked away with that one thought, it would change their lives. So first of all, let's make sure it changes our lives and we stop doing it. I'm committing to stop doing it. But so this honesty that we present in our podcast is unique because most people in podcasts make themselves sound invincible. We're not invincible. We go through stuff, we learn stuff, and we put into practice. Rick, got a question for you. Every husband wants to know, did you challenge your wife on her purchase?
Did I challenge her? No. I asked her, I did, what's the plan? What is it? And she told me, and she looked at me with that smile, and I'm like, as long as it makes you happy.
Ah, that's good.
No, I
That's
will
good.
challenge her 3 weeks from now if the planters are still sitting in the boxes at the front. I'll ask her, hey, when are we going to plant that herb garden you wanted so badly? But I pick my battles wisely, and complaining about a purchase that she made that makes her happy is not a hill I'm willing to die on.
So we have a podcast called Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement, and you are the wealth portion of it. And so it's how can we take the topic today to help other husbands and maybe wives be able to afford to allow their significant other to go out and spend money the way your wife does, Rick?
Well, first, I do want to give everybody a caution that I'm divorced a couple of times because I was a jerk. But if you tell your wife no or challenge your wife no long enough and often enough, you will lose half your stuff. And so it's really hard to save for retirement when you give half of it away in the divorce. Okay, so what was your question again?
It's true. How can you help other people grow financially so that their wives can go out and spend all the money that they want?
It's interesting that people will sometimes try to save their way to wealth, and that's really not possible. So I work with people to be more strategic with their money, create a private banking system so they park their money in a specific account. Then they can spend it, and then they still earn interest on the money they spent. It's just a strategy that helps people become more tactical with their money, spend it more than once in their lifetime. I also help people get out of debt faster so they can have more disposable income, and that frees up cash. The biggest thing I do is I help people track where their money goes. Is the plastic crap and the $10 Starbucks visit every day worth $300 or $400 a month that could be spent making your wife happier? Now, unless your wife has the Starbucks habit, which mine does, then you got to be careful. But knowing where your money goes is really key to getting more money, more value out of the money you're spending. Because people don't realize that most people will blow $20 to $30 a day without even thinking about it. And so keeping track of that, not that I want to put somebody on a financial diet because financial diets don't work, but an awareness of where'd my paycheck go? And then you have oh wow, that's not good moment when you realize how much you're really spending that doesn't provide any value other than immediate.
Okay. And so to our topic of why do we do what we do, some of the reasons that we came up with when we were brainstorming is jealousy. Wanting what someone else has is a tremendous motivation to waste money. Somebody else got a nice car. I want to have a car as nice as that. I want to have a house as nice as theirs. I want to dress as nicely as they do. If they buy a round of drinks, then I got to buy a round of drinks. It does add up over time. Any thoughts on jealousy as a motivation?
Yeah, jealousy that comes with, I want what they have, or I want to feel good about myself so I can keep up with the Joneses and keep up appearances. So that jealousy, like you said, the new car, well, and then I got to get a new car. I got to tell you, I tell people that I drive a 10-year-old car that's paid for, and I'm going to drive it for another 5 years until it dies because I'm not wasting money on a new car just to have the depreciation expense, and I don't need it. So it's really about priorities. I don't have to be jealous of somebody else's new car or new watch or their trip. I need to know what's important. I need to figure out what's important to me and do what makes sense to me, not what my jealous, insecure person inside me says I need to do to keep up with the neighbors.
So another one, jealousy is one. Another one is impatience. And impatience says, I'm going to borrow the money to buy the whatever I want and then pay for it after I have it while I'm enjoying it. But talk about the benefits of somebody being patient, saving for it, and paying for it without interest or with cash.
My parents really, they were incredible. They paid cash for a lot of things. They would save up money and pay cash for cars and furniture and houses and stuff. And if you're paying interest on something that's depreciating, you're paying more every month for something that is getting less and less value every month. It's really crazy. I saw a car commercial the other day, and they were advertising an 84-month financing, 7 years on a car that will probably be worn out in 5. So yeah, saving money and being disciplined. A little bit of discipline goes a long way. And so it's setting those goals of, I want to pay cash for a new car. Well, that's $40,000. or 30 or 20 or whatever. You just have to make a plan to save up for that instead of going and paying interest for the next 5, 6, 7 years on something that's getting less and less valuable every day.
So we talked about jealousy. We talked about impatience. How about the it makes me feel good motive of actually doing things that are destructive to your health and to your wealth and possibly even your relationship?
That is the ultimate in selfish behavior. I need it now. I want it now. I deserve it now. And you'll pay for that in the future because your future self will have less money, poorer health, or, go through a divorce or lose friends because you're acting in your own self-interest today. It's that microwave mentality of I need it right now. I deserve it. I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to work for it. And it just makes people into very shallow existence.
So what we're trying to say, if you're listening to us right now, is you always have a choice. You can save, sacrifice today to get what you want tomorrow, or you can enjoy everything you want now and pay it plus interest plus depreciation in the future. If we could get you to really stop and really think about where your money goes, where your time goes, where you're getting your calories from, and make investments in yourself as opposed to spending initially to create good feelings, we would actually change your life. And Rick, that's what we do for our clients, right? We actually
try.
get them to stop doing something now on impulse and really think through what they want, think through the long-term impacts of what they're about to do, and invest instead of spend. The difference between investing and spending is life-changing in relationships, with our bodies, and especially with money and finances.
One of my coaches said, I'm going to butcher this quote, but he said, "Do today what others won't do, so tomorrow you can do what others can't do."
Yep.
So,
And there's a financial guy named Dave Ramsey, who I hope it's not a competition with you, but Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else so you can live like no one else. The investments you make in your future today are 10 minutes that you get the benefit from for a lifetime. Rick, in one way or another, you're not challenging your wife on why she bought that stuff. Was an investment in your future of your marriage, right?
happy wife, happy life. That is true.
And a lot of cold, lonely nights if you challenge her. And so the point that we want to make and how we really, really want to help you as a listener is to really change your focus from what do I want today to what do I ultimately want for my life. And that change of perspective would absolutely create a way better future for someone than that I want it now, I don't care, and pay for it later. The last thing that I will say about this is if every religion, ours as Christians, but every religion basically says sacrifice today for a quote heaven tomorrow, right? Every religion is based on that. Every financial decision should be based on that. Every relationship decision. If we sacrifice exactly what we want short term and invest it to create what we want in the long term, we'd all have great retirements.
I'd have a much better body health wise as well because I have not invested the time and energy to maintain and grow my muscles and my health, my cardio fitness. And I'm paying the price now and I'm trying to steady the ship and change course, but it's been a challenge over the last 10 years.
So I would challenge everyone. I'll challenge you, Rick. I'll challenge myself. What you invest in today will pay dividends in the future. What you spend today will cost you with interest in the future. Every moment of every day before you do anything major or even minor when it comes to spending $10 a day on coffee, ask yourself a question. Am I investing or am I spending? And I think you'll make a totally different decision. That simple act.
Yeah, spending is for today, investing is for tomorrow, and as long as you invest more than you spend, you're moving towards a better tomorrow than you have today.
And every parent out there, when their kid asks, why do I have to do homework? What does school matter? What do we say? Because you're investing in your future, and yet most adults do not invest a single thing in their future whatsoever. Parents, you're hypocrites sometimes. Rick, I think we made the point, right?
Yeah.
Invest, overspending, and examine the motives of why we do what we do. So, Rick, any last thoughts on this topic for this week?
We've talked about a lot of negatives from selfishness and fear and jealousy. If you can change your motivation and understand your motivational fears or motivational emotions and start living out of love and for a higher purpose, helping others, investing in your future, your outlook will change dramatically. And so I encourage everybody to take a look at the good things around your world, the things we take for granted every day, that life is better than you think it is. It's not as bad as you think it is, but do one thing every day to live towards a higher purpose out of a positive motivation, not a negative motivation.
And with that, we come to the end of another episode of Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement, where the key component of this is invest today for tomorrow instead of spending for today and paying for it tomorrow. Rick, if someone wants to talk to you, how do they get a hold of you?
It's on our website, creatinghealthandwealthforretirement.com, or you can visit my website, my landing page, bankingforyourself.com. That's the word for, F-O-R, bankingforyourself.com. Set up a discovery call and we can talk about your goals and where you are and how to get where you want to be. How about you, Mark? How do they get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is through our website, creatinghealthandwealthforretirement.com. There's all my contact information is there. And the last thing I want to say for today, and then I'll give you the final word, Rick, is what you invest in grows, what you spend on shrinks.
Wow, that was deep. So I want to encourage everybody, especially the married guys, happy wife, happy life. If dad's how's it go? If mom is happy, everybody's happy. If dad's happy, ain't nobody happy. So I encourage everybody to make decisions in your relationships, even with yourself, that invest in your future instead of detract from your present.
Have a good week, everybody. We will see you at same bat time, same bat channel next week.
Have a good one, everybody.